Men are ultra soft nowadays. Now you might think like, oh, what's wrong with men? They seem to be fine. Criminal activity is bad, and everything that was, the masculine traits are just not for today's times. Well, you're actually wrong. Whilst I do obviously, I'm aware that criminal activity is not a good thing. I'm talking more about the way people think, rather than their actions. And it seems like men have to be cowards. They're cornered into being cowards, they're cornered into being submissive, and they think because they're stoic that they're now more masculine than other men. But it was never like that. And the reason why it was never like that is because the term insecurity didn't exist. Men weren't afraid to behave the way they want to. You know, yes, there's criminals out there, but they are people who've made bad decisions, and they're people that shouldn't have done that. And that's nothing to do with the other masculine men that would just be able to act like men and have have their way a lot. It's like you can't have your way as a man because you're just insecure, right? You're just labeled as insecure. You're just someone with an ego. Women say, "Oh, I hate men with so much ego." It's like that's the whole point of being a man. But a woman's ego is completely different to a man's, so they mistake that. A woman's ego doesn't come across as really confrontational. It doesn't come across as really arrogant. It's like a different sort of disguised way of getting your way. I think it's like manipulation and narcissism. Kind of that's how they operate. So they're able to get their way a lot better than men whilst being themselves. Meanwhile, men have to go completely against their brain wiring and their instinct and act in a certain way that just doesn't measure up to how they feel, you know? And then they'll talk about how men can't act on impulse and, control your impulse and this and that. It's like, yeah, I to a certain extent, but then there's times where you need to get it out and you fear that it's not accepted to let it out, you know? But then women can act like fools, certain women. They could get their way and they could be so narcissistical, so obviously narcissistical, and that's fine.